ஒரு நிமிஷம் சார் செக் பண்ணிடலாம் சார். இது ஸ்ட்ரீம் ஆகிலாம் வந்துச்சுன்னாப்பா. Hello, good evening. Am I audible? Hello. Good evening. Kirti, good evening. Am I audible to everyone? Am I audible? Please respond. Yes, good evening. Uma, good evening. Am I audible to everyone? Yes. So what we discussed yesterday, Ranjit Kumar, yes, good evening. Everybody, good evening. Vignesh, good evening. Yes, good evening everybody. So what we saw yesterday, Yagesh, good evening. Yes. Manoj, good evening. So what we saw yesterday, Vijay Kumar, good evening. So what we saw yesterday, yes. So I was just discussing with you about Python, right? So what are all the different things I was discussing with you about Python? What we saw yesterday? Please respond. I was discussing about Python, right? So what is data science? So I just gave an introduction to data science. So what is data science? Please respond. I want this to be an interactive session. Please respond. Yes. Variable list. So what are the different data types that are available in Python? What are all the different data types that are available in Python? What are all the different... One minute. Yes, list. Yes, I was discussing with you about different data types that are available in Python. And then what are all the different applications of Python? Data science. Yes, scientific study of data. This is called as data science. Yes, I was discussing with you about identifiers. So what is the use of identifiers? Please respond. What is the use of identifiers? Please respond. I want this to be an interactive session. Yes, integer, float, string. So what are all the different string operations that can be performed? What are all the different string operations that can be... Yes, I'll go a bit slow. So what are all the different string operations that can be performed? Yes, list, variables. Yes. What are all the different string operations that can be performed? Please respond. Yes, I'll try a bit of... I'll teach a bit slow. So what are all the different... Yes, please respond. So I am going to discuss with you about different types of list, variables. So please respond. So today I am just going to continue with the remaining. Yes, slicing operation. What do you mean by slicing operation in strings? What do you mean by slicing? String slicing. Yes. What do you mean by string slicing? Please respond. Concatenation. S. Slicing, length, copy. SS. Yes. So these are all the different things I was just discussing yesterday. String slicing functions. What are all the operations that are being performed? SS. So what are all the different applications of Python? I was discussing with you about list. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. Alright. So if you are interested, 1 minute, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So DSE is the coupon code. So you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship. 1 minute, I'll just swap my screen. So you can go to pantechelearning and you can go for data science internship program. Actually, I want one slide. So you can go to pantechelearning site and you can register for data science internship program. So welcome DSC. This is the coupon code that is available. So this is the total internship fees. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. So the internship registration closes by 23rd of this month. Please hurry up. Alright. Yes, good evening everybody. So today I am just going to continue with the remaining of Python. So I am just going to continue with remaining of Python. Some more of advanced Python I am just going to teach you. So I am just going to continue with the remaining of Python. What are all the other things that are available? 1 minute. Just a minute. Let me just... So I am going to continue with tuples and then I am going to discuss with you about some more of Python functionalities that are available. So yesterday I was just discussing with you about list. So today I am just going to continue. So what do you mean by a tuple? So it is similar to a list. The only difference between a list and a tuple is that the list is mutable whereas a tuple is immutable. We can add or delete elements from a list, whereas in case of tuples we cannot add or delete elements. So once the elements are stored in the tuple, it remains permanent. So this is the main difference between a list and a tuple. So this is one simple syntax for using a tuple. So what I am trying to do here, so within simple brackets, so I am just giving here, so A, B, C, D. So I am storing different types of elements inside this tuple. So you can store, it can contain a collection of string values, integer values, floating point numbers. So everything, all the elements, they are being separated by comma. So they are enclosed within simple brackets. It is stored in the variable called tuple. This is one simple example of tuple. So if I want to fetch some particular element from my tuple, so I have to give the variable name within square bracket. I have to specify the corresponding index location. For example, at the 0th index, whatever element is present in the tuple. So tuple within square bracket, I have to specify the corresponding index location. So what are all the different types of operations that can be performed using list? Similar type of operations can be performed using tuple. So am I making sense? What do you mean by a tuple? The only difference between a list and a tuple is that list is mutable. The size of a list can be changed, whereas tuples are immutable. So within simple brackets, I can store different types of elements inside a tuple. So it can contain a collection of strings, whole numbers, floating point numbers. So within simple brackets, they are being separated by comma. So this is one simple example of tuple. So am I making sense? So what I am trying to do here? So let me just show one simple example of tuple. So what I am trying to do here? 1 minute. So this is my data science, right? So what I am trying to do? For example, I am giving the name as sample tuple equal to, I am storing some elements inside my tuple. For example, I am giving as parrot, it can contain a collection of string and floating point numbers. So it can contain a collection of strings, so 0, so 9.9. So what are all the different types of elements that can be stored inside a tuple? So I am trying to fetch some particular element from my tuple. For example, samtup. So I am trying to fetch the element which is stored in the first index location. So at whichever index I want to fetch. So what are all the different types of operations that can be performed in a list? Similar type of operations can be performed using a tuple. The only difference between a list and a tuple is that a list is mutable. The size of a list can be changed, whereas a tuple is immutable. So this is the main difference between a list and a tuple. So do you get my point? What is the main difference between a list and a tuple? So what I am trying to do here, so I can print some elements. So for example, if I want to fetch some element that is stored in the first index position. So I have to give the variable name within square bracket. I have to specify the corresponding index location. So at the corresponding index, whichever element is present in the tuple, it will be displayed at the output. Say for example, I want to fetch some elements. So for example, I want to fetch from 2nd till 5th position. So colon operator is used for slicing function. So before colon indicates the starting index and after colon indicates the ending index. So am I making sense what I am trying to do here? So at the first index, so at the 0th index, so the indexing starts from 0th position. So at the 0th position, parrot is stored. At the first position, 0 is stored. At the second position, so 9.9, this value is stored. And at the third position, 45 is stored. So I am using the variable name within square bracket. I have to specify the corresponding index location. Say for example, I have to fetch the first element from my tuple. So at the corresponding index, at the first index, whichever element is present in the tuple, it will be displayed at the output. So am I making sense? What is the use of tuple? So this is the syntax. This is an example of simple tuple. So within simple brackets, I can store different types of elements inside a tuple. And what are all the different types of operations that can be performed using list? Similar type of operations can be performed using tuple. So for example, I have to give the variable name within square bracket. So I have to specify the corresponding index. So colon operator, this is used for slicing. So before colon indicates the starting index and after colon indicates the ending index. Alright. So at the second position, the start index is always inclusive and the end index is always exclusive. So at the second index, whichever element is present in the tuple and the end index, whichever element is present. So it is called as a slicing operation. So what is the use of colon operator that is available? If I want to fetch some specific elements from my entire tuple, I can go for a colon operator that is available. So till this part, is that clear? What do you mean by a tuple? So next I'm just going to discuss with you about advanced Python topics. What do you mean by classes and objects? So can you just tell me what do you mean by a class? Anybody can tell me what do you mean by a class? So a class is nothing but a template or an entity. Say for example, I want to construct a factory. So I want to know how many rooms should be there, how many floors should be there. It is just like a sketch, a template or an outline. It is called as a class and many instances of that type can be created. So this is called as an object. So similar kind of thing can be implemented using Python. So this what I am going to do here. Say for example, I have a class called employee. I am going to show you one simple example. So do you get my point? What do you mean by a class? So it is nothing but a template, an entity. So many instances of that type can be created. So they are called as objects. So I am going to illustrate this with one simple example. What do you mean by classes and objects in Python? For example, I am just creating a class. So how you have to define this class? So class is defined using the class keyword space the name of the class. So I am just giving this as employee. So I am just creating an employee class colon. So this is the syntax for creating a class. So I am just initializing this variable employee count equal to 0. So am I making sense what I am trying to do here? So after doing this, I am just defining a user defined function using the def keyword. So if I want to define any sort of user defined function, I have to use this keyword called the def keyword which is available. So I am just using the init parameter which is available. So I am just initializing this function. So what are the various parameters it takes? So self, what is the use of self parameter? It just denotes an instance of this class. So whenever I want to use the class instance, so I have to go for this self parameter which is available. So am I making sense? What is the use of self parameter and what are all the different parameters it takes? I can pass a name as an argument. I can pass a salary. So all these are called as attributes or data members. So every employee is going to have a name and he is going to have some salary. So this is what is called as data members or attributes. So I am just initializing. So self denotes an instance of this class. So self.name equal to name and self.salary equal to salary. So am I making sense? What do you mean by this? That is, class is nothing but a template. So employee, it is a separate entity. It can standalone entity is called as a class. It can stand by itself. So many instances of the type in an organization, many employees are there, correct? So we have many thousands and lakhs of employees. I can create any number of such classes. They are called as many instances of class type. They are called as objects. Is that clear? What do you mean by a class and an object? So I am just initializing this class. Def keyword, it is used for defining a user defined function. I am just using an init parameter. I am just initializing this function. So what are all the different parameters? So self denotes an instance, class instance, and name, it denotes the name of an employee, and salary, how much he is earning. So self.name equal to name. So name is assigned to self.name and salary. I am just assigning the salary to self.salary. So employee.mCount. So I am just incrementing this employees count by 1. I am defining another user defined function using the def keyword. So I am just displaying I am calling a function called display count function. So self is passed as an argument. It denotes an instance of this class. So I am printing total number of employees. How many employees are present in an organization? So employee.mCount. So whenever I am calling this, so using this class name, I can call the corresponding attribute. So if I want to print the name of an employee, or if I want to print the salary of an employee, or if I want to print the employee count. So how many employees are present in an organization? So using the class name dot, I have to call the corresponding data member or attribute. And using the def keyword, there is a display employee function, user defined function. So self denotes an instance of this class. So I am printing the name of the employee and I am printing the salary of the employee. So am I clear? What do you mean by classes and what do you mean by functions? So this is one important concept that is available in Python. So whenever I want to define any class, so I have to define using the class keyword. So yesterday I was discussing with you about reserved keywords, right? Yes. So what do you mean by reserved keywords? So they are nothing, they are having some specific purpose. So they are called as reserved keywords. So am I making sense? Init, it is nothing but initialization. Yes, it is a function. So you are having some parameters, right? It is a function. See, def keyword. Def keyword, yes, I'll go a bit slow. Def keyword, it is used for classes. Yes. What do you mean by a class? Say for example, 1 minute, I'll just explain what do you mean by a class. For example, what do you mean by classes and objects? So what do you mean by a class? It is nothing but a template, an outline or a sketch. For example, in an organization, what do you mean by a class? Employee is a class. A separate entity, a standalone entity, it is called as a class. For example, I have a class called employee and I have various attributes. Say for example, an employee is going to have a name. He is going to have a salary, how much he is earning every month. So all these are called as various attributes or data members. So am I making sense? All these are called as various attributes or data members. So these are all the different attributes or data members. So what do you mean by a class? An entity, a template or an entity, it is called as a separate class. A template or an entity, this is called as a class. It can stand by itself, standalone unit. So you can call as, technically it is called as a template, an entity is called as a class. So standalone unit. Employee is a class. Am I making sense? So many instances of this type. For example, in an organization, say I have Sam. So all these are different employees. So he is going to have a different name and salary. So I can create many instances of this type. Say employee 1. So these are called as objects. Employee 2. So many instances of this type can be created. So this is what is called as classes. SS. I'll go a bit slow. So this is what is called as classes and objects. Is that clear? So what do you mean by classes and objects? Any more doubts? What do you mean by classes and objects? Any more doubts? Is that clear? Yeah, I'll go a bit slow. So, yeah, do you understand what do you mean by classes and objects? So, what do you mean by a class? A separate entity, a standalone unit or an entity, a template or an entity. This is called as a class. So, many instances of this type can be created. Say, for example, employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. So, all these are called as different attributes. That is different objects. Many instances of this type can be created. So, these are called as objects. So, am I making sense? What do you mean by classes and objects? Any more doubts? So, till this part, whatever I am discussing, is that clear? Objects, please acknowledge. Is that clear? So, once you acknowledge, I can proceed. So, till this part, whatever I am discussing, yeah, I'll go a bit slow. So, is that clear? What do you mean by classes and objects? Is that clear? So, whatever I am discussing, is that clear? What do you mean by classes and objects? Yeah, I'll go a bit slow. So, a class is nothing but a separate unit, an entity. This is called as a class. It can stand by itself, and many instances of this type, employee, that is employee 1, employee 2. So, all these are called as objects. Many instances of this type can be created. So, these are called as objects. So, is that clear? What do you mean by classes and objects? Till this part, everything is clear, right? So, I am just going to illustrate this example. What do you mean by classes and objects? So, once I am going to show this in Jupyter Notebook, so you will be clear. What do you mean by classes and objects? So, what I am trying to do here? So, I am just trying to create an employee class. For example, I am creating an employee class. And then what I am trying to do here? So, I am displaying the employee. So, who are all the different employees who are present in my organization? So, what I am trying to do here? So, I'll just explain this code entirely. So, you'll just understand what do you mean by classes and objects. 1 minute. So, I'll just explain this code entirely. So, you'll just understand what do you mean by classes and objects. So, what I am trying to do here? 1 minute. So, what I am trying to do here? I left something. So, I am creating a class called employee. And then what I am trying to do here? Total employee. I left something, right? 1 minute. So, after defining a class, 1 minute. Sorry for the interruption. So, what I am trying to do here? So, first I am just creating a class called employee. So, I am just initializing. So, I am just initializing a variable employee count equal to 0. And then I am initializing a function. Def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. So, init function. I am just initializing this class. So, self denotes an instance of this class. So, name of an employee and salary of an employee. So, all these are the different arguments that this function takes. So, I am just initializing the name. Self.name equal to, I am just assigning this name to this name variable. And self.salary equal to, I am just assigning the salary to the salary variable. And what I am doing next? Employee.emp count. So, I am just trying to increment this employee count by 1. And def keyword, I am just displaying this employee count. So, whenever I am going to call this function display count function, it is just going to display the count of employees. That is how many employees are present in an organization. So, am I making sense? What are all the different things I am doing here? So, display employee function. So, it just calls the function. 1 minute. Self.name, and then I am trying to print the salary of an employee. So, what I am trying to do here? So, def keyword, it is used for defining an user defined function. So, display employee. So, self denotes an instance of this class. colon. So I am just using the print statement. I am trying to print the name of the employee. So self.name denotes the name of an employee, and self.salary, it denotes the salary of an employee. So whenever I am calling this employee class, so am I making sense? So I have to call the class with the class name, and I am trying to pass these two arguments. That is the name and the salary of my employee. So for example, as I told you, right, I am just initializing this function. So what is the name of an employee and what is the salary of an employee? So I am just incrementing this variable. So whenever I am trying to call this function, so I am trying to increment the employee count by 1. So after doing this, this is the first employee. I am trying to create one more employee. So I am passing these two parameters. That is the name and the salary of my employee. So what is the name of my employee and how much he is earning? So again this function will be called initialization function. So self denotes the instance of this class, and name denotes the name of the employee, and salary denotes the salary of my employee, how much he is earning. Alright. So self.name equal to name. So I am just initializing the name of my employee, and self.salary equal to salary. So how much he is earning. So each and every time I am adding an employee, I am trying to increase the employee count by 1. So employee, using the variable name, I am calling the corresponding attribute. So whichever attribute of my class I have to use, using dot operator, I am just calling the employee count plus equal to 1. So each and every time I am adding a new employee, I am trying to increment the attribute employee count by 1. So am I making sense? So after doing this, using the corresponding variable emp1, whichever member function that is I want to call, so I am just calling a display employee function that is available. So I want to print my first employee name. So what is the name of my employee and for example how much he is earning. So am I making sense? The first employee's name is Zara. He is earning 2000. And second display employee function, what I am doing, so whenever I am calling this function, it is going to print the name of my employee as well as the salary. So whichever function I have to call, how I have to do so? Using the variable name, using dot operator, I have to call the corresponding function. So I am just calling this display employee function. So self denotes the instance of the class. So print self.name. So I have already initialized the name and salary of my employee, right? So I am just printing the name of my employee. So self.name. So money is his name and how much salary he is earning. And total number of employees. Employee.emp count. So I am just calling the emp count function. So already I have incremented this employee count, right? So each and every time I am adding a new employee, the emp count will be added by 1. So I am getting the total employee count as 2. So you are clear with this example. What do you mean by a class? What do you mean by a user defined function? And how this program works? Is that clear? Till this part, whatever I am explaining, is that clear? What do you mean by a class and object? Till this part, any doubts till this part, whatever I am explaining, is that clear? Please respond. Which one you want me to repeat, Rahul? You want me to repeat this function? You want me to repeat this program, entire program? Yes. One more time I am just repeating. So what I am trying to do here? So I am just creating. So whenever I want to create any class, so I have to use the keyword, reserved keywords. Yesterday I was discussing with you about reserved keywords, right? So what are all the different reserved keywords that are available in Python? So I have to use this reserved keyword space the name of the class. So employee is the name of the class colon. So this is the syntax for creating a class. So I am just initializing the employee count. So this is an inbuilt variable that is available, emp count equal to 0. After defining this, Def is the function for defining a user-defined function. So using the def keyword, so I am just initializing this function. So I am using double underscore. There is a inbuilt function called init function that is available. So what are all the different parameters it takes? Self denotes an instance of this class. So whenever I want to call any class instance, I have to use the self keyword, comma, the name of an employee. So what are all the different parameters it takes? The name of the employee, comma, the salary of an employee, colon. So this is the syntax for defining a user-defined function. So after defining a user-defined function, so I am just initializing the name. Self.name equal to name and self.salary equal to salary. So whichever arguments I am just passing to this parameterized function, I am just initializing the name of an employee and I am just initializing the salary of an employee. So how much salary he is earning. After doing so, employee.mCount. So I am just trying to increment the employee count by 1. So plus equal to 1. So I am just trying to increment the employee count by 1. After doing so, I am defining a user-defined function called display count function that is available. So self denotes an instance of this class, colon. So I am using a print statement, total employee. So employee.mCount. So how many employees are present in an organization? So whenever I am going to call this display count function, it is going to print me the total number of employees that is present in an organization. And whenever I am going to call the display employee function, it is going to print the name of an employee. So self.name denotes the name of an employee and self.salary denotes the salary of an employee. So what is the name of an employee and how much he is earning? So self.salary denotes the salary of an employee. So after doing so, I am calling the class. So whenever I want to pass any arguments, so I am just defining a init function, right? So whenever I have to pass any arguments to my init function, so I am calling the corresponding class. So I am just calling an employee class and I am passing these two arguments, the name and the salary he is earning. So these two are passed as arguments to my init function. It is stored in the variable called emp1. Again I am calling the class by the class name employee class and I am passing the name and the salary. So what is the name of my employee? It is enclosed within double quotes and how much salary he is earning. So it is stored in the variable called emp2. After doing this, emp1.displayEmployee. So I am just calling a display employee function that is available. So it is going to print the name of my employee and it is going to print the salary, how much he is earning, salary of an employee. And emp2.displayEmployee. So whenever I am going to call this function again, so I have added two employees, right? It is going to print the name of an employee. Self.name denotes the name of an employee and self.salary denotes the salary of an employee. And total employee count. So total employee, so percentage %d denotes the format specifier. So whenever I want to print in the integer format, I have to go for %d format specifier. So employee.mCount. So I am just calling this employee count. So it is going to print the number of employees I have added. So I am getting this 2 as the output. You are clear with this program? Percentage, it is the format specifier. Is that clear? Init. So I am just initializing this class function. So whenever I want to define a function of this class, I can use this init function. So it is a user defined function. Def keyword is used for defining a user defined function. Am I making sense? Is that clear? You are clear with this example, whatever I have explained? Yes, employee is a class and emp1 is an object. Yes. Is that clear? emp1 and emp2 are different objects. So, if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. So DSC, this is the coupon code. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science masterclass internship program. So this is the coupon code, welcome DSC. So once you register, you will be getting access to the coding part, the lecture videos, how the projects are developed, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. So you are clear with this concept. What do you mean by a class and what do you mean by an object? So this is one important functionality that is available. Next, I am just going to discuss with you about how I can access various attributes. So as I was telling you, right, this is one simple example I was discussing. So still many more functionalities are available. So next I am going to discuss with you about class inheritance. So what do you mean by class inheritance? So what do you mean by inheritance concept? Anybody can tell me what do you mean by inheritance concept? So whenever a child class inherits the properties of a parent class, then it is called as inheritance concept. So what do you mean by inheritance? So whenever the child class objects, they are trying to use the properties and the member functions of parent class, then this concept is called as class inheritance. Is that clear? What do you mean by class inheritance? Whenever a child class object is trying to inherit the properties of parent class, what are all the member functions and the attributes of parent class, then this concept is called as class inheritance. Is that clear? What do you mean by class inheritance? Say for example, I am just creating a class called parent class. So whenever I want to define any class, I have to use the class keyword. So I am just creating a class called parent. So I am just initializing a member variable, parent attribute equal to 100. So I am just defining a parent class and then I am initializing this attribute, parent attribute equal to 100. And def keyword, it is used for defining a user defined function. So I am just using the init method. So self denotes an instance of this class. So I am just calling the parent class constructor and I am defining a def keyword is used for defining a user defined function and parent method. So I am just calling the parent class method and I am setting the attributes getter and setter attribute. So self attribute and get attribute. So I am just using this setter and getter for setting and getting my attribute. So after doing this, what I am trying to do here, I am creating a class called child. So what do you mean by inheritance concept? So whenever my child class inherits the properties of my parent class. So what do you mean by this inheritance? For example, whatever our parents has that is saved for us, all goes to his answer, that is child, correct? Inherits the properties of his parents. Similarly, what do you mean by inheritance concept? So whenever the child class inherits the properties of the parent class, that is, it can access the attributes on the member functions of the parent class, then this concept is called as inheritance. So what I am trying to do here, I am trying to define a class called child class. So parent denotes, so it is trying to extract all the properties, extend the properties of my parent class. So what are all the member attributes and the methods that are present in the parent class, all those can be used in the child class. So parent, I am specifying within simple brackets colon and then I am defining a user defined function using the def keyword. I am initializing the child class. So I am calling the child class constructor and child method. So I am calling the child class method. So I am just initializing this child class. It is stored in the variable called c dot child method. So I am just calling this child method. So first I am just creating an instance object of child class. Using this child class method, I can call the parent class attribute as well as the child class methods. So this concept is called as inheritance. So whenever I want to call any of the member methods, member functions or member methods, how I can do so? Using the variable name, using dot operator I am just calling the child method. So calling the child method. So c dot set attribute. So there is an inbuilt function called set attribute function that is available. So I can set the attribute as 200. After doing this, get attribute. So whenever again I am going to call the parents method, it is going to print the value as 200. This concept is called as inheritance. So do you get my point? What do you mean by inheritance? What I am trying to do here? So there is a base class. The root class or a base class is called as the parent class. So whenever a child class inherits the properties of the parent class. So what do you mean by this? The child class can access the member attributes and the methods of the parent class. Then this concept is called as inheritance concept. Is that clear? So let me just run this in Jupyter. So what I am trying to do here? So I am just trying to create a parent class or base class. From this what I am trying to do here? So after creating a parent class or base class, so I am just using a def keyword for setting and getting my attributes. After doing this, I am defining a child class. So child class, using class keyword, I am just defining a child class. So all these are the different steps that are involved. Alright. So what I am trying to do here? So when I am going to I have to give the correct syntax in order to run this code. So what do you mean by inheritance? Whenever my child class inherits the properties of the parent class, then this concept is called as class inheritance. So am I making sense? What do you mean by inheriting? That is, it can use the methods and the properties that are available in the parent class. This concept is called as class inheritance. So what I am trying to do here? 1 minute. So I have to give the corresponding syntax. So I am just giving the simple brackets. So after doing this, what I am trying to do here? So I am giving the corresponding syntax here. After doing this, what I am trying? So just click the run button. So you can see here, right? What I am trying to do here? So first, whenever I want to create any class, I have to use the class keyword space the name of my class. So parent is the name of my class, colon. So I am defining a parent class. So I am just setting this attribute, parent attribute equal to 100. So def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. I am just initializing. Self denotes an instance of this class. I am calling the parent constructor. After doing this, parent method, self denotes an instance of this class. I am calling the parent method and set attribute, self comma attribute, parent dot parent attribute. So I am giving this attribute to parent attribute and I am getting my attribute. Am I making sense? Def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. After doing this, I am defining a class called child class. So I am trying to inherit the properties of my parent class. I am defining a user defined function using the def keyword. So I am just initializing my child class. So I am calling the child class constructor. So after doing this, def child method. So self denotes an instance of this class. Then I am creating an instance of my child class. So whenever I want to initialize this child class, I have to call the corresponding class name. It is stored in the variable called c and c dot child method. So I can access the child class methods as well as the parent class methods. This concept is called as inheritance. So I am calling the child method. So initially my child class constructor will be called and my child method will be printed. After doing this, I am calling the set attribute function that is available in the parent class. So what do you mean by inheritance? The child class can access the member functions and the attributes of the parent class. This concept is called as inheritance. So I am just setting my attribute using the set attribute function that is available in the parent class. Again, using the child class reference, using dot operator, I am just calling the get attribute function. So I am just printing the parent class attribute. So 200 will be printed at my output. You are clear with this example? what this example is doing. With this I am just stopping today. So you are clear. What do you mean by a class? What do you mean by an object? And what do you mean by class inheritance? Till this part, whatever I am speaking, whatever topics I have discussed today, everything is clear to everybody. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. You will be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, the lecture videos. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. So welcome DSC, this is the coupon code. If you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Am I making sense? So whatever topics I have discussed today, everything is clear to everybody. Any doubts in the topics? Which code? Which one you want me to repeat? My chat box is rolling fast. One by one. So any doubts in the topics? So whatever I have explained, inheritance coding you want me to repeat? Yes, I'll just repeat. So what do you mean by inheritance? The first one or the second one? For example, I am just creating a class called employee class. So whenever I want to create any parent class, so I have to use the class keyword. So yesterday I was speaking with you about reserved keywords. So I have to use the class keyword. So class keyword is used for defining a class. So space the name of the class colon. So what I am trying to do here? So I am just initializing this employee count equal to 0. After doing this, def is the keyword for defining an user defined function. So I am just initializing this class. Self denotes an instance of this class and what are all the different arguments it takes. It takes the name of an employee and it takes the salary of an employee. So self dot name equal to name and self dot salary equal to salary. So am I making sense? I am just initializing this class and employee dot mcount plus equal to 1. So each and every time I am trying to add a new employee, my employee count variable will be incremented by 1. After doing this, def is the keyword for defining the user defined function. I am just using a function called display count function that is available. So self denotes the instance of my class colon. I am just trying to print how many employees are present in my organization. So I am just giving within double quotes total employee. So employee dot mcount. So whenever I am trying to add new employee, so it is going to print the number of employees present in my organization. After doing this, I am defining one more user defined function using the def keyword which is available. So I am just giving as display employee. So self denotes an instance of my class. After doing this, self dot name denotes the name of my employee and self dot salary denotes how much he is earning. So I am just trying to print the name and the salary of my employee. So I am just initializing this employee class. So I am just passing the name and the salary of my employee. So whenever I am passing this name and salary, so I am just initializing this employee class. So I am just initializing the name and the salary of my employee. So M1 is an object. I am creating one more object called employee2. So I am just calling this by the class name. I am passing the name and the salary of my employee. So M1 dot display employee. So whenever I am going to call this user defined function, it is going to print the name and the salary of my employee. And M2 dot display employee, it is going to print the name and the salary of my employee. And employee dot mcount. So whenever I am going to call this employee dot mcount, so how many employees I have added, it is going to print the total number of employees present in my organization. Is that clear? Any more doubts? If you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, so how the projects are being developed, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. If you are interested, employee.mcount. So whenever I am trying to see, for example, here what I am trying to do here, so I have to use this employee class. Clear? So mcount belongs to this class variable. Am I making sense? I am trying to use an instance of this class. It is defined outside this method. That is why I am accessing using this class name. Someone asked me, right, instead of employee you can use self. I don't remember your name. Please acknowledge. When your doubts are cleared, please acknowledge. If you are interested, you can go to Pantech. Yes, Prabhu. You are clear now why I am using. Because it denotes an instance of my class. So I am trying to access a class variable. So I am using employee. So it is defined outside this method. Am I clear? Prabhu, someone asked me, right, some doubt. So any more doubts? Artificial intelligence. Yes. So if you are interested, you can go to Pantech e-learning. Explain the memory allocation for list and tuple. See, list is mutable whereas tuple is immutable. That is the main difference between a list and a tuple. Am I making sense? What is the difference between a list and a tuple? Am I making sense? Set attribute function. If I want to set the attributes, I can go for set attribute function that is available. So I am trying to set the parent class attribute, right? So I am using for set attribute and get attribute. User input, if you want to take, there is a function called input function. So till many more functionalities are available. Whatever I can cover, I am just covering. So if you are interested, you can go to Pantech e-learning. You can register for data science internship program. So this is the coupon code. Welcome DSC. If you are interested, you can go to Pantech e-learning. It is a paid one. Inheritance, you want me to repeat? Yes, I'll just inheritance. Yes, I'll just repeat. Code for inheritance you want me to repeat. Just now I explained inheritance, right? Second example you want me to repeat. Yes, I'll just explain the second example. So what does this example do? Second one I am just explaining. So I am just defining a base class. Class denotes parent. That is, class is the keyword, reserved keyword. So I am defining a class called parent colon. I am setting this attribute parent attribute equal to 100. And def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. So I am just initializing this parent class. So I am calling the parent class constructor. And I am creating a method. Def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. I am creating a method called parent method, and self denotes an instance of this class. So I am just printing here calling parent method. After doing this, def set attribute. So self denotes an instance of this class and attribute. So parent dot parent attribute. So I am just assigning this variable. So I am just setting this parent attribute to whichever variable parameter I am passing here. So similarly, I am defining a user defined function called, using the def keyword, get attribute. Self denotes an instance of this class. So parent dot parent attribute. So whatever variable value is stored in this variable, it will be printed at the output. And then I am defining a class called child class. So it inherits the properties of my parent class. So def is the keyword for defining a user defined function. So I am just initializing this child class. So I am calling the child class constructor and def space child method. So self denotes an instance of my child class. So I am calling the child method. First I am just initializing this child class and c dot child method. So whenever I am calling this child method, so it is going to print. So what is the use of inheritance? Using the child class object, I can use the child class properties as well as I can access the parent class properties and methods. So c.child method, it is going to print calling child method. And c.set attribute, this is available in my parent class. So I am going to set the parent class attribute. After doing this, c.get attribute, so whatever value is stored in this attribute, it will be printed at the output. Is that clear? What do you mean by inheritance? Is that clear? Someone asked me, right? Is that clear? What do you mean by inheritance? Self function, Hemant, it just denotes an instance of the class. Whenever I want to call the class instance, it denotes the instance of this class. Self denotes a class instance. Am I making sense? Why we are using self here? Any more? Whatever I can cover in 2 days, I am just covering. So whatever is essential, I am just covering. So it's still many functionalities are there. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. Alright. So you will be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed. So the lecture videos, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. Child class. Yes, just now I was explaining about child class, right? So here, class is used for defining the keyword. That is, class is used for defining, it is a reserved keyword, child class. It is going to extend the properties of my parent class. So within simple brackets, I am just writing as parent and I am defining a user defined function using the def keyword that is available. So I am just initializing this child class. So self denotes an instance of this class. So am I making sense? So what I am trying to do here? So I am just calling the child class constructor. So am I making sense? And def denotes child class. Whenever I want to define any user defined function, I have to go for def keyword that is available. So am I making sense? What I am trying to do here? So child method. So I am calling the child method. So I am trying to create an instance of my child class. C equal to child of. So using this variable name, using dot operator, I am just calling this child method. So calling child method and c dot set attribute. I am just setting this attribute as 200 and get attribute. The 200 will be printed at the output. Is that clear? Any more doubts? Tuples. So what tuple, what doubts you have? Yes, one. So whatever value element is stored at the first index, it will be displayed at the output. So the indexing starts from 0. So at the 0th index, parent is present. At the first index, 0 is present. So 0 will be displayed at the output. Is that clear? Yes, del is used for deleting something. Any more doubts? Yes, you have courses in artificial intelligence. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed. So more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. Any more doubts? So whatever I am discussing so far, is that clear to everybody? Any doubts so far? Any doubts? Memory allocation remains the same. As I told you, right? List is mutable whereas a tuple is immutable. That is the main difference between a list and a tuple. The size of a list can be changed whereas the size of a tuple cannot be changed. If you are interested, if you want my PPTs, the lecture notes, how the codes are being developed, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. Alright. So you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, More hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. Parent attribute in init constructor. What do you mean by this? Someone is asking me some doubt, right? Init constructor. So I am giving, yes, you can write. See here, I am using a parent attribute in init constructor, right? Init, it is used for initializing. First, I am just initializing the constructor. Am I making sense? Here you can see here, I am passing name and salary. So you can use the parent attributes here. Any more doubts? Any more doubts? No, self is the keyword. Yesterday I was speaking about reserved keywords, right? You have to use only the reserved keywords. Which last 4 lines, Shiba, you want me to repeat? Mutable means you can change. Immutable means you can't change. Class inheritance. Anjali, you want me to repeat class inheritance? Yes, I was repeating, right? So what I am trying to do here? Class is the keyword for defining a class. Space the name of my class. Colon. So what I am trying to do here? I am trying to set my parent class attribute equal to 100. So def is the keyword for defining a user-defined function. So I am just initializing the parent class. So self denotes an instance of my class. So I am just calling the parent constructor. So again, I am defining a user-defined function using the def keyword. So parent method, I am just calling. Self denotes an instance of my parent class. So I am just calling parent method. So again I am calling the def keyword for defining a user-defined function. So there is an attribute called set attribute function that is available. So self denotes an instance of my class attribute. So parent dot parent attribute equal to. So I am just assigning this variable to this parent attribute. And get attribute. So whichever function. So def is the keyword for defining a user-defined function. So I am just calling a get attribute function. And self denotes an instance of my class. Colon. I am just printing this parent attribute. So parent dot parent attribute. After doing this, class space child. So parent, I am trying to extend my parent. And I am defining a user-defined function. I am just initializing this user-defined function. So self denotes an instance of my class. So I am just calling child constructor. So first I am just initializing this child class and def defines the user-defined function. Def is the keyword for defining a user-defined function. So I am just calling this child method. Self denotes an instance of my class. I am calling the child method. After doing this, I am just initializing my child class. Using this object c.child method. So whenever I am going to call this child method, so first my child constructor will be initialized and calling child method will be printed. After doing this, using the child class object c.set attribute. So I am just setting the attribute as 200. After doing this, c.get attribute. So 200 will be printed at the output. Is that clear? So Amrit Bir Singh. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So you'll be getting, once you register, you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how to download Anaconda Navigator. So you'll be getting access to the recorded videos, lecture notes, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. If you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for data science internship program. Alright. So how to download Jupyter Notebook? So yesterday I was telling you, right, how to download Jupyter Notebook. So you can go to Google. You have init constructor. Set attribute is different from init constructor. See here. So I am setting this parent class attribute. This is just initializing. That's all. So if I want to set my attribute, So I am using the set attribute function. Am I making sense? So what do you mean by a constructor? It is nothing but it is used for initializing an object. It is used to allocate memory. This is called as constructor. Is that clear? So it just initializes. So if I want to set some attributes, I have to go for set attribute function that is available. Is that clear? Here this is the member attribute. So I want to access a parent class attribute. So I am using a user defined function called set attribute function that is available. Count method. So if I want to increment the employee count, I am just using an count variable that is available. Employee.mcount. Is that clear? Priyadarshini? So please acknowledge employee count. In order to increment each and every time I am adding a new employee, I am trying to increment the employee count by 1. Is that clear? Which part is not clear? Is that clear? Whatever I am explaining till this. Any more doubts? Employee count is you. Whenever I am trying to add a new employee, I am trying to increment the employee count by 1. I am trying to increment the employee count by 1. Jupyter Notebook, I am telling you, right? You can go to Google. So, you type Anaconda Navigator. Download. So, there is individual edition, right? So, once you go here, so there is a download option that is available. Is that visible? My screen is visible. So you can click the download button. So once you click the download button, so you can download the Anaconda Navigator and then you follow the instructions. You click the next button, and once it is downloaded, so you can go to start menu. So when you are going to type Anaconda Navigator, so this is my home screen of Anaconda. So once you come here, you can go to new option. So there are various options that are available here, right? Files, running, clusters. So there is a new, you go to Python 3 option. So a new notebook will be opened here. And you can start writing any Python coding here. Am I making sense? So Shaikh, use self.count. No, what I am trying, please understand the code, what this code is doing. So why I am using employee? So I am just referring this to the class employee. So I can't use self. So it refers to the class instance. So I am just using employee.mcount plus equal to 1. Is that clear? Any more doubts? So if you want, Sumant, if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So just log into pantechelearning. 1 minute. 1 minute. I'll just show you. You can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. So welcome DSC. This is the coupon code. So you'll be getting IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, how the projects are being developed, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. Yes, Harisekar, what you are asking, child class inheritance. Yes, one child class can inherit one parent, multiple inheritance is not possible. Is that clear? So till many more concepts are there. So Pydroid 3 is the app for using in mobile. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for data science internship program. Alright. Manoj Kumar, if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. Inheritance example. I was telling you, right? Say for example, employee is a class. For example, I want to create, say for example, human is a class. So every human being is going to have eyes, 2 eyes, 1 nose. I can create many instances of humans. Is that clear? What do you mean by inheritance? Any more doubts? So whatever topics I have explained till this part. Any more doubts? Please acknowledge. So whatever I have explained so far, any more doubts? If you are interested, if you want this PPTs, Ramasri, so you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for Data Science Internship Program. So welcome DSE, this is the coupon code. You can register for Data Science Internship Program. So you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning and you can register for Data Science Internship Program. Alright. You want to access something from a string. So what do you want to access? So you want to access a specific character from the string. Using the index location, you can access a specific character from a string. Praveen, if you want to access a specific character from a string defined in the list, so using the index location, you can just access. Am I making sense? For example, at the 0th index, so you have to give the corresponding index location. So at 0th index, whatever, is that clear how to access a specific character from a string? Someone asked me, Praveen, right? Please acknowledge. Once your doubts are cleared, please acknowledge. Please acknowledge. Yes, you can have multiple child classes, Suma. Any more doubts? Yes, you can have multiple child classes for one parent class. Any more doubts? It is a paid one, Chaudhary. It is a paid one. So if you are interested, you can go to pantechelearning. You can register for Data Science Internship Program. Alright. So you'll be getting access to the IPYNB files, how the codes are being developed, more hands-on experience and classroom instructions will be given. Tuple you want me to repeat, Anjali? So tuple I was telling you, right, within simple brackets. So I can store different elements in my tuple, and using the variable name within square bracket, I have to specify the corresponding index location if I want to access a specific element from my tuple. Is that clear? Any more doubts? Yes, you can have multiple child classes for one parent class. Any more doubts? Alright then. So we will meet tomorrow. Same time. Same link. Anjali, inheritance means the child class object is trying to inherit the properties of my parent class. Or in parent, you have to give the corresponding index location 0, 1, 2. So if you give the corresponding index location, you can pick the corresponding element. R. Someone asked me, right, I don't see your name. Any more doubts? Next class will be tomorrow. Alright? Thank you all. So remaining things, we will see tomorrow. Praveen, I just told you, right, how to extract R from my string. So remaining things, we will see tomorrow. Same time, same link. Thank you all.